what town?
I don't even know. This is why there are safety inspections, he said. But it's that green truck, is that it? Is that food truck? Like, is it a food truck?
Well,
Hello, Wilson.
truck, can't really see the side very well, but
Green one,
yeah, there's a lot that it could be.
let's see.
All right,
Mike.
so that part is there, so now let me do.
Weed.
No, I don't want that. This. Share. I want this. Let me try. Let's see, I hear people.
Oh, welcome.
Oh, young lady. It's good. It's like, you know, so when you're on the judge, you fall for it.
In the name of that?
No.
That's crazy, huh? Was it food truck?
Look like it's there, so,
That was nuts.
oh. That wasn't in town anywhere.
It's forever, he said. I think I've seen that truck before. Like, well, you know. Hi, how are you? Mandy posted it. This is vitamin section.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh,
Long time no see.
I know. Not even virtually.
No, for a while there, it was quite often.
about 3.5 hours, but I'll keep it moving.
You had that fellow,
Coffee, we can call.
I say in now, an hour and then it's time for us.
Oh, wonderful. Great, that's great.
See, you don't tell my wife, but we don't think you.
How's Michael doing?
I said to Heather, I said, I just finally had to leave because I had to rip the band off. That's how to get out of there. He texted me, are you coming home yet? And I said, I just got here. I go, how's the baby? He goes, it's perfect. I said, what's the issue? And I was.
I.
5 months.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the Dad's first time home.
Oh, yeah.
It
It wasn't a red gun.
No, it was white.
It's easy to see.
White truck.
Oh,
No, it's mostly 2 or 3 miles. I was still on. Main road.
You were down, coming up the hill. You got about to know, but you had to make all the time, that would be my way here, you know.
Also, the very good yesterday.
You didn't.
Oh, no. that happened, that would be hospitalized. Of course, when we were kids, it was very hungry, but now it's, you're not to see one of it.
Yes, but the most of this, then your dad, it's people are. Nothing for themselves.
Yeah.
And what's on it says.
It's like some-
Well, I thought she was some insurance guy, said it was something. Oh. Yeah, I need to hear where it was.
I used to drive, my favorite car was a Volkswagen. And I was at the San nice. And I did not hit either, but first one year. First nice. And things just off the other one. Yeah.
He's not like, not completely on his own yet. He's pretty good. He's like starting to say like, instead of just saying random stuff, like it's really good.
It didn't stop it.
Oh, yeah. But if I'm trying to get
It's the ground at the same, that is.
Anything.
That came over, get broken stack like. And it flew up in the air. So.
Is it in the freezer then?
Did the other, was the other car impacted? Was the other car impacted?
No, they didn't. They didn't. They just, they gave us. Handed us. You know, okay, so.
I'll sit up here.
So, yeah, we.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
That's great.
No, I didn't tell anybody.
It's close.
What? Yeah, what, you need to go down there? Oh, well, I'm good with the count. Well, this has been counting us,
Okay, I got like 26 and 5.
and I'm on your time, so I start when you tell me and.
I got plenty of minutes.
I say, you got plenty of. And
Okay, all right. Your call. We'll give them a. Okay. What'd you do with all the other ones? Put them over there?
No,
Oh, all right.
I don't, I mean, I can go get more.
No. I figured you said you were looking for a cup. So I wondered if you put in that thing over there. There actually is a cup. There's stuff that used to be in the drawer. There's just stuff that used to be in our drawer, but we haven't.
oh, you got your name. Maybe it's mine. Shit.
You know, tag and speak. Yeah. I did that. So. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it's gonna be able to get it done. Well, yeah. One person. There were six. Oh, gosh, I feel it. But it wasn't interesting. So. Oh.
And I was worried.
Everyone was probably finishing dinner.
Probably. Probably.
But I guess this.
I think-
Stops.
Huh? I don't know.
I thought he was.
That's like fun. So I don't.
See, there are 5 watching from home, so.
Oh, okay.
You would miss the warning. You're online.
You wanna, up to you.
We found.
Jim.
Why is that?
Hello, Little Town District. Thanks for coming out. My name is Lynn Radishis. I'm a staff attorney and the education coordinator at the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. Thank you, Carol, for helping us coordinate this. I am here to tell you a little bit about the Rhode Island Ethics Commission and the Code of Ethics. We're gonna get the PowerPoint up because some people are visual learners and it helps to look at the slides. See if you can-
Hang on. Put the wrong button.
It's okay. The slideshow from the beginning seemed to work out well. Perfecto, okay. So this is indeed an introduction, okay, to the Code of Ethics. It is big picture stuff. You don't have to memorize this. There is nothing that you'll hear tonight that you can't access at a later date. You want a copy of this PowerPoint? Done. You want a copy of the Code of Ethics? You can go online. You can let me know. I'll send you one in the mail. A hard copy if you like. If you leave here tonight knowing that there is an ethics commission, when you might need us, how to get a hold of us, that's going in my win column. I hope it'll go in yours as well. So this is indeed an introduction. I would rather tell you a little bit about every part of the code than just come in and hit 1 or 2 things and have you wondering what else is in there. So again, big picture stuff. I am happy to answer your questions. I do ask a favor, if possible, if you can hold your questions till the end, that's terrific. And here's why. 98% of the time, your question, next slide. I promise, I've been doing this long enough to know. And if it's not the next slide, it's coming up. And if I kind of dodge into a different area and then try and get back, it's gonna just keep us here longer. So if you can hold your question till the end, terrific. That having been said, if you simply can't go on until your question is answered, raise your hand. I'll do my best to answer it. So just wondering who's here? Town council? School committee? Planning? Zoning? Historic district? Anybody else?
Library board.
Library board, excellent.
Budget.
Ah, very good. This is wonderful. Thank you for coming out. Let's see if I can make this work. There we go. Take a look at Article 3, Section 7. This is from our state constitution. Okay, addressing ethical conduct. It says the people of the state of Rhode Island believe that public officials and employees must adhere to the highest standards of ethical conduct, respect the public trust, the rights of all persons, be open, accountable, and responsive, avoid the appearance of impropriety, we'll talk more about that, and not use their position for private gain or advantage. This is what our Constitution asks of us. The Code of Ethics supports it wholeheartedly. So before we get into the code, I'd like to talk a little bit about ethical conduct in general, just to get us to the topic. Okay, so ethics. is a standard or philosophy of right and wrong human behavior based on logical reasoning. So ethical behavior is the type of behavior that a logical person would agree is just the right thing to do under the circumstances. But here's the problem with that. People have different ideas about what makes behavior right and wrong, right? What might be right to one person might be wrong to another, vice versa. So let's look at a couple of ways that ethical behavior is measured. We have ethics based on culture. Ever hear, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? Many people think that whether something's ethical depends on the setting in which it occurs, taking into account the local culture, habits, customs. This is the way we've always done things in town, it must be ethical. Well, maybe, maybe not. Ethics based on culture is not the way that the Ethics Commission evaluates ethical behavior. So how about ethics based on consequences? That's where ethical or unethical conduct is determined by examining the outcome. Ethical conduct is behavior that produces more positive results than negative results in both quantity and quality. Maybe you've heard, well, the end justifies the means here. All's well that ends well. As long as we come out with the right answer, doesn't matter how we got there. Not so if you ask the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. This is not the way that we evaluate ethical behavior. So how about ethics based on character? That's where ethical conduct is determined by asking, what would a virtuous person do under these circumstances? The focus there is on one's character, one's motives. Hey, I'm a fine, upstanding citizen. How could I possibly violate something called the code of ethics? Guess what? Even character is not the standard by which ethical behavior is measured at the Ethics Commission. So what is? We ask you to please focus on your action and forget the result. And the reason is because the code of ethics tells us what actions to avoid without regard to culture, without regard to consequence, even without regard to character. Ethical or unethical conduct is determined not by looking at results, but by looking at the conduct itself and judging its inherent rightness or wrongness. So before we get to the code, let me tell you a little bit about the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. There are 9 members that sit on the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. They are all appointed by the governor. The governor gets to select 4 people of his or her own choosing, and the governor seats the other 5 members of the commission by choosing from lists of 5 names that are submitted by leaders from both the House and the Senate, depending on whose turn it is. So I can say that for the first time in a long time, all 9 seats are filled on the Ethics Commission. For a while, we were limping by with about 6 members. Then it went up to 7 and stayed there for a while. We have all 9 now, and it's wonderful. And guess what? They don't always agree, which makes it very exciting. It's a good group that's on the Ethics Commission, a little bit lawyer heavy right now, but that's okay too, because they have one lawyer isn't practicing. He's a businessman for his family's box business, I think. We have 2 retired judges on the Ethics Commission now, which really adds a different kind of element to it. They were both, one was workers' comp. I believe Judge Ritchie and Judge Signorini might have been district court. Lauren Jones, who's an appellate attorney, is the chair. Holly Susi is a professor of writing at CCRI. She lends a lot to the commission. Mr. Rabadou is kind of an expert in zoning and land use, that sort of thing. We have a principal from Newport, so it's a really good group. We're happy to have them all 9. The Ethics Commission is very powerful. They have advisory, investigative, adjudicative, and in some instances, removal powers. Now, in my 7 years with the Ethics Commission, I have not seen anyone removed from office, but quite frankly, if someone's in that much hot water with the Ethics Commission, I think they're gonna step down before there's an opportunity to remove them. Of interest to you might be the following: no member of the Ethics Commission can hold or campaign for public office. They may not hold office in any political party or on any political committee, nor may they participate in or even contribute to a political campaign, not so much as a sign on the front lawn of an ethics commissioner at election time. So I am a member of the Ethics Commission staff. I work before those 9 members of the commission. Our executive director and chief prosecutor was a gentleman named Jason Grammett. And before Jason became executive director in April of 2018, he had my job for, I think, 20 years. This guy knows the code up one side and down the other. And Jason and I are 2 of 5 attorneys that are in our office. We have 3 investigators. They are all former police officers or detectives. They know their way around an investigation. We have a lovely and helpful support staff. One of whom is going to have a baby next Monday, so we're very excited for that. There are 12 of us that work at the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. We hang out at 40 Fountain Street in the city of Providence, and the last slide will have our contact information on it. So, back to the code, subject to this code of ethics, this rule book, besides all of us in this room. All state and municipal elected officials are subject to the code, as are all state and municipal appointed officials. As are all employees of state and local government and members of public boards, commissions, and agencies. There are a lot of people subject to the code of ethics in this state. Conflicts of interest and recusal. This is a really big part of the code. And I wanted to start with one because it's so big. And quite frankly, conflicts of interest and nepotism, pretty much the bread and butter of the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. There are other parts that we're going to study or learn about, but I like to start with conflicts of interest. So let's dig right into that. As a person subject to the code of ethics, you may not participate in any matter as part of your public duties. If it is reasonably foreseeable, let's stop right there and figure out what that means. Under the code of ethics, for something to be reasonably foreseeable, the conflict of interest has to be more than conceivable and less than certain to occur. That is a big window, okay? If it is reasonably foreseeable that you, any person within your family, I'll tell you what that means, your business associate, I'll tell you what that means, or any private business by which you are employed, if they will derive a direct monetary gain or even suffer a direct monetary loss because you took part, stop. You've got a conflict of interest. You can't take part in that. You need to recuse and step back. So I've had people say, I get the financial part. So I'm on the town council, and if I vote to approve this, which is my intent, I could understand if it was gonna put money in my pocket, I'd have a conflict and have to refuse. But quite frankly, when I vote for this, I'm gonna take one for the team because I'm gonna lose money. So how is that a conflict? It absolutely is a conflict because the code makes no distinction between financial gain and financial loss. The concern is that there be no direct financial impact on you, a member of your family, a business associate, or a private business by which you're employed by virtue of your taking part, okay? So, who are your family members? Under the code of ethics, whether by blood, marriage, or adoption, here's your list. Spouse, parents, children, siblings, grandparents and grandchildren, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, and your first cousins. So if the code says you may not take an action in your official capacity that will directly financially impact your family member, that's who they mean. So someone might say, Lynn, I haven't spoken to my sister in 6 years. If she has a matter before me in my public capacity for the town, no worries. I would no more go out of my way to help her than I would to hurt her. I'll treat her like I would anybody else. No conflict, right? Wrong. It is a conflict. A family member is a family member is a family member, regardless of the status of your relationship at any given time. That cousin you were introduced to at a wedding 8 years ago and had never met, that's your family member, okay? So the same person might say, Lynn, I'm a lot closer to my best friend than I ever was to my sister. If my best friend comes before me in my official capacity for the town of Little Compton, do I have to recuse? How many say, yes, I do, if my best friend does? How many say, no, I do not? How many say, I am not here to answer questions, you are, this is our. That would be me at any event I've ever been to, okay? So here's what I can tell you. You are not required by the Code of Ethics to recuse if your friend has a matter before you. Can you imagine the job of the Ethics Commission trying to assign a value to your friendship with somebody? How do you even go about that? Oh, did you meet in kindergarten? Did you date in high school? Do you take each other's kids back and forth to practices or rehearsals? Do you text twice a minute, twice a decade? It's impossible. But remember at the beginning that constitutionally founded goal of avoiding even the appearance of impropriety as someone subject to the code. If you have a friend that has a matter before you in your public capacity, that is a wonderful opportunity for you to just exercise the discretion to say, you know what? I know I don't have to recuse, but if I take part in this, it could carry with it an appearance of impropriety, so I'm just going to choose to recuse. Do you have to do that? No, you do not. Should you do that? It depends who you ask. Tonight you're asking me, so I say yes, but sermon over for now, okay? So who are your business associates? Remember, you can't take official action that will directly financially impact your business associate. Who do we mean? Well, by definition, our business associates are persons or entities with whom we are joined to achieve a common financial objective. Not the best definition. Let's look at some examples. Your business partners. If you have a business, your business partners are your business associates. That makes sense, I'm sure. People you have hired are your business associates. Think attorney, accountant, realtor, contractor, you get the idea. The Ethics Commission has determined that the landlord-tenant relationship, one of business associates, and this next one is really important and a lot of people forget it. You ready? Any businesses or organizations, now this includes not-for-profits, okay? If you are an officer or serve as a member of the board of directors, even if you don't get paid to do so, you are a business associate, not only of the organization itself, but of the other officers and the other members of the board of directors, okay? So, business associate relationships don't necessarily remain ongoing forever. People come and go throughout our lives. So I'd like you to know what the Ethics Commission looks at when they're trying to figure out, is there a business associate relationship here? They're going to ask 3 questions. The first one is, are the parties conducting ongoing business transactions? Next question, are there outstanding accounts between the parties? Maybe the business between them is concluded, but one still owes the other money. And third, is there an anticipated future relationship between these people? You don't need a yes to all 3. A yes to any of these will indicate to the Ethics Commission this appears to be a business associate relationship. So a minute ago, I used realtor as an example of a business associate. Say you sold your house in 2019 and you used a realtor. Hopefully got more than you were asking, had the closing, all the funds have been distributed. You've been living happily ever after in your new home for 6 years with no plans to use that realtor or any other realtor again. And that realtor comes before you in your public capacity for the town of Littleton. Barring some other relationship under the code, like it's not your nephew, okay? Probably not your business associate anymore, right? It's done, it's in the past. But let's say you're selling your house now and you used a realtor. You've accepted an offer, the closing's in 2 weeks, and that realtor comes before you in your public capacity for the town. Stop. That is your business associate. You have a conflict of interest and must recuse yourself from participating in that particular matter. All right. Think of a conflict of interest as a situation where your public duties and your private life intersect. That's a conflict of interest. Now, I said no test at the end, that is still true. But if you leave here tonight remembering anything that you saw or that I said, make it this next thing. You ready? It is not unethical to have a conflict of interest. It doesn't violate the code of ethics to have a conflict of interest. Said the woman with 31 first cousins. I kid you not. It's not the conflict that's the problem. The potential problem is the failure to identify and manage a conflict. We help people do that every day. All right, so do I have a conflict of interest? Here's what you're going to ask yourself. Is it reasonably foreseeable, more than conceivable, less than certain, that a decision that I'm helping to make as part of my public duties will result in a financial benefit or detriment to me, to my family or household member, to my business associate, or to a business by which I'm employed? Ask yourself, even if there's no financial impact, is a family member, a household member, a business associate, or a business by which I'm employed, a party to, or participating in the matter that's being discussed here? If the answer is yes, you have a conflict of interest you must recuse from participating. Now, you might notice the term household member in this slide and the last slide. That's because under the nepotism provisions of the code, which we're going to look at briefly in just a moment, if someone lives in your household, regardless of whether you are related by blood, marriage, or adoption, as far as the nepotism provisions are concerned, that's conflict of interest territory. Okay? All right, the act of recusal, very simple. We ask you to complete a statement of conflict of interest form, often called a recusal form. Carol, do you keep those in the building?
Yes.
Absolutely, right. If not, you can download one from our website, call us and we'll send you one. You present the original to your presiding officer or appointed authority or supervisor. And then between the two of you, please decide who's going to send the ethics commission a copy, because we do keep track of these. These things are down to one page now, I understand, they've been revised and revised. So the important thing is that recuse, because I've had people say, well, I didn't have a form. Well, recuse and worry about the form tomorrow, but hopefully you can, ideally, you can do them both simultaneously. Nepotism. I don't know why this slide makes me giggle, and if nepotism exists, my brothers will root it out, right? Irony. Okay, on to nepotism. As someone who is subject to the code of ethics, you may not participate in any matter as part of your public duties if there is reason to believe or expect that any person within your family or a household member is a party or participant, or will derive a direct monetary gain, or suffer a direct monetary loss, or somehow obtain an employment advantage by virtue of your participation. Now, the code's prohibitions against nepotism apply regardless of whether, for example, your family or household member absolutely objectively the most qualified candidate for that position, absolutely deserves the promotion. If it's gonna happen for that family member, it's gotta happen without you being involved. And the policy underlying the prohibitions against nepotism is premised on the recognition that it's just really, really difficult for anybody to be truly objective in a matter that's going to impact someone in their family or their household. Do we think you can do it? Maybe, probably, not the point. We remove from you the obligation of having to defend yourself after hiring your niece, right, by just taking it off the table. And one last time, I'll remind you of that constitutionally founded goal of avoiding even the appearance of impropriety. So, still with nepotism, these are some examples, not an exhaustive list, but this will give you the idea. Hiring someone in your family or household is nepotism, as is the awarding of a contract to someone in your family or household. Any decision regarding a family or household member's property is also nepotism, as is appointing someone in your family or household to a position that will either carry with it a stipend or an ability to put it on their resume. And of course, participating in a disciplinary matter in which a member of your family or household's employment is at risk. These are all examples of nepotism. Still on nepotism. As someone who is subject to the code of ethics, you may not participate in the supervision, evaluation, appointment, classification, promotion, transfer, or discipline of anybody in your family or your household, nor may you delegate any of those tasks to your subordinate. You can't hire your brother-in-law as a paid intern next summer. You can't ask your subordinate to do it. It would be as though you've done it, okay? All right, I get these questions all the time. All right, I'm recusing. What do? Do I leave the dais? Do I leave the room? Do I leave the building? What happens if I recuse because I have a conflict? Recusal does not mean that a public official must leave the room if it's an open meeting. But I'll tell you right now, that is best practice. That's what you ought to do. Okay, at the very least, leave the dais or the head table or whatever your group is. Because even if you sit there with your hands folded and your mouth closed, your presence there lends an appearance that you're participating. So here's why you might want to leave. Someone might say, look, I'm just gonna sit in the front row here, I'm not gonna take part in this. And I'm gonna sit in the front row, I'm gonna text home, see if anybody needs anything at CVS. Hi, I'm accused, I'm not taking part, anybody need anything at CVS? What's gonna happen is, while you're doing that, one of your colleagues who didn't recuse, their phone's gonna buzz and they're gonna look at it and it's gonna say, Uncle Joe's out of the hospital, he's doing great, call me later, I'll fill you in. Okay, I'll call you later, I can't talk, I'm in a meeting. What's gonna happen is the next morning at 8:31, my phone's gonna ring. And someone's gonna say, I wanna file a complaint against the person that recused last night, and went in the front row and immediately texted the other person, who immediately texted them back, and that was participation on filing. And when I tell you, you can't make this stuff up, the only part I made up is, I wasn't the lucky one to get that call, as all you was. So, the long way of saying, just take the room, do yourself a favor, come back when it's done. However, now if a public body's in executive session or closed session, if you think about it, once you recuse, you really have no more right to be in the room than the other member of the public. So please do leave the room if it's an executive session. Contrast, ever so briefly, no person subject to the code of ethics may enter into any contract with the state or a municipal or a municipal agency unless the contract has been awarded through an open and public process, including prior public notice and subsequent public disclosure of all the proposals that were considered and the contracts awarded. Think request for proposal, right, an RFP. Now, there are certain contracts for professional services that are customarily awarded without competitive bidding. Those don't require competitive bidding, but they still have to be awarded through a process of public notice and disclosure of the financial details. Think physicians, attorneys, engineers, architects, accountants, land surveyors, psychologists, and the like. So the example I give for this is, let's say that someone is on the school committee and has a little side hustle in the winter plowing snow. No problem with that, right, as it stands, has a truck, has a plow. What the person can't do is go to whomever in the town, for which they sit on the school committee, is in charge of hiring snow removal and say, you don't have to post this, you don't have to put this out for bid. I'm your guy, I've got a truck, I've got a plow, I've got nothing but time when I'm not serving the school committee, and I'll give you a reasonable price, so how about it, let's have a contract. That would be very wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that this person can't necessarily submit if there's an RFP, a request for proposals. But if someone's gonna do something like that, you should really call the ethics commission to make sure that you're not crossing any lines there, depending on what the job is that you hold and what the job is you wanna pursue. New topic, secondary employment, sometimes called moonlighting. And a number of people do have a second job in addition to their state or municipal position, and that may or may not be okay, but here's what people need to remember about that second job. This is particularly for state employees such as myself or municipal employees that want a second job, because a lot of public servants, they're volunteering or getting a small stipend at night and they have their day job. So what you can't do is take a second job that's going to impair your independence of judgment with respect to your public duties, nor may that second job require or induce you to disclose confidential government information that you acquired by reason of your job. All right, so a number of people will ask the Ethics Commission for what's called an advisory opinion before they take that second job. And my guess is that a number of you are familiar with what advisory opinions are. I have a feeling I may have written one or two of them for folks in this room. We're gonna cover those more deeply in a moment, but for now, let me tell you what the Ethics Commission looks at when trying to weigh out whether or not that second job is gonna be okay. First thing they're gonna do is look at how closely related the job you want on the side is to the job you perform for the town. See what that nexus is, how closely they're related. Next, any work you do in that second job has to be completed outside of your normal work hours and without the use of public resources. Also, you can't appear before your own agency under the Code of Ethics. And any work that you do for that second job has to be conducted outside of areas over which you have decision-making jurisdiction. And this last one, a lot of people don't like it, it's kind of a bummer, but you may not use your public position to solicit business or customers for your private undertaking. Okay, it's not like in private industry. Let's say someone owns a flower shop. And the person who owns the flower shop has a niece, has a lovely voice that sings at weddings. And sometimes customers may go into the flower shop to plan a wedding. The owner might say, oh, do you have a soloist yet? Take my niece's business card. She's, wonderful. Just give her some consideration. That's not public. That's not a public job, being a florist, right? But if I'm trying, okay, if I'm up here saying to you, yes, I work for the Ethics Commission as an attorney, but I also pet sit on weekends. So if you need to go away and board your dog, I'll just write my number on the back of my business card. That would be very, very wrong, okay? Plus you'll never get your pet back. I love it. So that's secondary employment. Hopefully, this comes as no surprise to anyone in this room. A person subject to the Code of Ethics shall not use or disclose for financial gain confidential information acquired in the course of your public duties. Right, when I say for financial gain, I don't just mean for you. Think that core four again, for you, for someone in your family, for your business associate, or for your private employer. Please keep confidential information just that, confidential. Gifts, the most popular topic at these trainings year round. And I have to tell you, Carol was lovely enough to substitute this new slideshow for the one I originally sent when we booked this, because the Ethics Commission changed the gift rule on September 30th. And you're one of the first audiences to get the new spiel on the gift rule. I'll cut to the chase, the amount went up. Okay, so let's go over this now. Public officials and employees are prohibited from accepting a single gift valued at more than $50 and multiple gifts with an aggregate value of more than $150 in any calendar year from a single interested person. I'll tell you what that means in a minute, subject to certain exceptions. Now, this goes into effect January 1st of 2026. Previously, the limit for a gift was $25 per interested person, $75 in the aggregate. So, the way that this came up, the 50 came about was, I guess they looked at the year that $25 became the limit. And they said, well, back then, $25 was $25. What is that $25 worth today? And I believe the answer was $41 in change. And they rounded up to 50. So that's how they did that. Now, once upon a time, I did this training and a gentleman said to me, do you mean to tell me that if I do a good job as a public servant and someone wants to say thank you to me by giving me 2 tickets to a Boston Bruins game, that I can't take those tickets? I said, very good, sir. That's exactly what I'm telling you. It's not that. And I said, I have a question. Did anybody ever try and send you to a Bruins game before you worked at this building? He just kind of looked down. And I felt a little smug and said, okay. All right, now, if your municipality or in some state agencies, they have a zero tolerance policy for gifts. If anyone's municipality or agency has a zero tolerance policy on gifts, or one that's more strict than this, then you gotta follow your town or agency's policy. But let's say that an agency says, yeah, we get it, Ethics Commission, you can't go around accepting expensive gifts from interested persons, but $50, come on, we're gonna make it $200. In that case, you follow the Ethics Commission's rule. You follow the less fun one, that's how you move, okay? So what is an interested person? An interested person can be either or both of the following. Ready first? A person, business, or other entity, whether for-profit or not-for-profit, that has a direct financial interest in a decision that the gift recipient is authorized to make as part of their official duties, or a person, business, or other entity, whether for-profit or not-for-profit, that is a registered lobbyist or engages a registered lobbyist or lobbying firm. Now, this definition of interested person also takes place, effect in January. Previously, this regulation excluded lobbyists from nonprofit organizations. Because people said, oh, it's a nonprofit, there's no financial interest. Well, nonprofits can be thought of having financial interest. So that's that. So, there has to be a direct financial interest in a decision that you make or are authorized to make for there to be a conflict. So there are some exceptions, okay? A valid campaign contribution is not considered a gift, all right? Nor is service to assist the recipient in the performance of official duties such as advice, consultation, information, communication, or services to constituents. Also, if it's a plaque or a similar item that's given in recognition of services in a field, or to a charitable cause, that's an exception. Couple more. It might be because of the recipient's membership in a group. The majority of members in that group are not subject to the code of ethics, and an equivalent gift is offered to all members of the group. That's an exception. A gift given by a member of the recipient's family would be an exception. And then, this next one's a mouthful, but let's try it. A gift given by a person, entity deemed interested by reason of being or employing a registered lobbyist, right? So the person's a lobbyist, but the recipient, the intended recipient of the gift, is not a member or employee of an agency that's being lobbied by that lobbyist. And the lobbying entity has no other direct financial interest in the decision, okay? This stuff can be tricky. My motto is buy your own coffee, buy your own lunch. We're public servants. We don't need to be, receiving gifts. Now, I'm kind of glad that it's not a zero tolerance policy, although I'd accept it. Because if some schlub like me was out giving a training and somebody gave me a glass of water or a bottle of water and I drank it, someone could file a complaint the next day. I did bring that water. Okay, transactions with subordinates. We're moving right along here. As someone who is subject to the code of ethics, you may not engage in a financial transaction. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean three things: private employment or consulting, giving or receiving loans, or monetary or charitable contributions with an employee, contractor, or consultant over whom you exercise supervisory responsibilities. That would be your subordinate. Can't do any of those things with regard to a subordinate. Exceptions, yeah, we have them. Here's the first one. Financial transactions in the normal course of a regular commercial business or occupation. That would be an exception. The second exception is if the subordinate is the one to initiate financial transaction. That would make a difference. And then third, there are charitable events that are sponsored by the highest official or governing body of the state or municipality, which is why the governor can invite state employees once a year to contribute to the United Way, because it's a charity sponsored by the governor. All right. No person subject to the code of ethics shall solicit or request directly or through a surrogate political contributions from a subordinate over whom that person exercises official supervisory responsibilities. Now, this does not prohibit or limit the First Amendment right of any subordinate to contribute to the campaign of their choosing. What this prohibits is, let's say that an employee, one of the bosses over at the Department of Environmental Management marches into work one day at a staff meeting and says, I have had it with politics in this state, that's it. I'm gonna run for state rep next year, and I'm gonna be the best state rep this state has ever seen. I really could use some help. I appreciate it. No contribution is too big or too small. I'm just gonna leave the envelope here. Do what you can. Thanks a million. Oh, right, reviews are in 2 weeks, right? You can't do that. Now, that doesn't mean that someone can't contribute to a political campaign of their choice, but you can't go around, I believe that, shaking people down for contributions, let's call it what it is, right? The revolving door, there are a number of revolving door provisions in the Code of Ethics, and a lot of people don't like them. But I want you to know why we have the revolving door provisions, statutes and regulations in the code. The purpose is to prevent government employees and public officials from unfairly profiting from or otherwise trading upon contacts, associations, and special knowledge that they acquired during their tenure as public servants. Let's look at an example. This is from the Code of Ethics. No elected or appointed official may accept any appointment or election that requires approval by the body of which that official is or was a member to any position which carries with it financial benefit. And this prohibition continues for 1 year after the termination of that person's membership in or on such body. Now, the Ethics Commission can make an exception and give its approval for a particular appointment that conflicts with this, if satisfied that if they don't allow it, it's going to create a substantial hardship, not for the person who wants the job, but for the agency trying to fill the position. Let's look at an example. A town council has a lawyer on it. Happens all the time, not a problem in and of itself. The lawyer leaves the town council. No nefarious reason, maybe didn't run again. Goes off back to private practice. It's 6 months later. The town council is faced with a project for which the solicitor cannot be helpful, and they need to hire a lawyer to help shepherd them through this project. And somebody innocently says, well, let's hire Dan. Dan's a lawyer, he's on the town council, he knows us, we know him, he's familiar with the project, we've been talking about it for years. Let's just hire Dan. Dan cannot take that job because he's only been off the town council for 6 months. If it's been a year and a day, have at it, and good luck to you. But 6 months is a big no. Let's say the council says, Dan, we think we can get an exception here. Why don't you go to the Ethics Commission and get advisory opinion? Because advisory opinions are issued to the people that it's binding on. And remember, it's Dan that can't take the job. So Dan goes and among the facts, as he's giving the facts to whoever's writing the advisory opinion, says, well, the town council wants me to tell you that it's very important that they hire me to do this job because of the 12,000 lawyers in Rhode Island, they can't find me. Right? So I don't think that would constitute any hardship. All right, as a person who is subject to the Code of Ethics, you may not represent yourself or anyone else before your own agency, before the agency of which you are a member or by which you are employed, or before another agency if you have appointing authority for that agency. Right? So in some places, the town council appoints the planning board. Is that the case here?
Mhm.
So if you're on the town council, not only can you not appear before the town council because you're on it, you can't appear before the planning board because you seek the planning board, right? And you may not serve as an expert witness before your own agency. And these prohibitions continue for 1 year after you leave your public office or employment. So what do I mean by representation? You may not represent yourself. Representation is defined as the participation in the presentation of evidence or arguments before an agency for the purpose of trying to influence the judgment of that agency in your favor or in favor of someone else. Now, there is something called a hardship exception. The Ethics Commission may grant a hardship exception, allowing you to represent yourself before your own agency or before an agency over which you have appointing authority. To obtain a hardship exception, you've got to get one of those advisory opinions. Let me tell you how this has worked in the past. Let's say someone's on a zoning board and wants to put a shed in their backyard. So the person's in their backyard, figuring out where the shed's gonna go, finds the perfect spot and says, you know what, I'm gonna have a problem with the setback requirements in the ordinance. I'm gonna need to ask for a variance so I can put a shed where a shed ought to be. I have to go to the zoning board. Wait a minute, I'm on the zoning board. I can't go before the zoning board. What's a guy who needs a shed to do? He's gonna go to the Ethics Commission, like at least 4 people on zoning boards have done in the past 7 years. A lot of sheds going up zoning board for family homes. Although we put up a new shed 2 weeks ago too, so people are building sheds. And the person's gonna say, ethics commission. I need to go before the zoning board to ask for variance so I can put a shed where a shed ought to be. How about one of those hardship exceptions? Chances are strong the ethics commission will say, okay, we'll give you one, but here's the thing. You're not voting on it. Nor, and also, you're gonna let everyone at that meeting know that you got this advisory opinion saying it's okay for you to appear before your agency. Guy goes on his merry way, maybe he gets his variance, maybe he doesn't. 1 year later, same guy buys a piece of property in town. This is a nice piece of property, I am gonna develop it. I'm gonna construct a commercial building. I'm gonna rent it to people and I'm gonna sit back and collect the money. First up, the zoning board. Oh, I'm still on the zoning board, I'm not supposed to go before it. I know, the ethics commission was so nice last year, when I went and asked them for hardship exception, I'm going back. Hi, ethics commission, it's me, zoning board guy, yep, shed went up, everything's great. I could use another hardship exception. This time, I want to appear before my own agency because I need to do so in connection with a piece of land that I bought that I'm going to develop and put a commercial building on and make a whole lot of money. How about it? What do you think the ethics commission is gonna say? Too bad and so sad. There is a big difference between wanting to go before your own agency, put a shed in the backyard to keep kids' bikes and the grill dry in the winter, and wanting to go before your own agency to launch this new commercial venture. When can he do it? When he's been off the zoning board for a year, right? That's hardship exception. Complaints, we do get them at the ethics commission. They are rarely filed by one's friends. I'm only gonna have one slide on complaints, I'm gonna zip right through it. Anybody can file a complaint with the ethics commission against someone subject to the code of ethics. It's gotta be on a form that we provide. It's gotta be signed under oath. Know what that means? We do not accept anonymous. The complaint has to name the individual alleged to have violated the code of ethics. We call that person the respondent. It's got to identify the respondent's public office, detail the specific acts which allegedly violated the code. This document is not public unless and until it is accepted by the executive director. The complainant is not a party. The complainant gets the ball rolling, but it's state of Rhode Island. Also, complaints before the ethics commission are civil in nature. They are not criminal in nature. The ethics commission does not put people into prison. That is not to say that somebody facing a civil ethics complaint is not in some hot water with the attorney general or the US attorney over the same or similar conduct. But before us, it's civil in nature. Advisory opinions. This is the other half of my job when I'm not doing trainings, and that of my colleague and friend Theodora Papa. Teddy and I probably draft 95% of the advisory opinions that leave our office. So we want you to know what they are and how to get one if you need one. The only thing is, whenever I do this training, more advisory opinions come in, and Teddy and I are like, maybe we don't have to mention advisory opinions. It's good job security. An advisory opinion is a legal interpretation of the code of ethics. It is issued by the ethics commission. It provides specific guidance about a particular and impending circumstance. And it's based on the representations of the petitioner. The petitioner is the person who's asking the advisory opinions. You take away from this, the ethics commission does not issue advisory opinions on hypothetical situations. One, who's got the time. Two, you're of no use because these advisory opinions very, very much depend on the specific facts which support the question. The fact changes the opinion, outcome could change, right? And when I say based on the representations of the petitioner, this is not an investigative process. No one's gonna challenge the facts as you present them. But stop and think about why people get advisory opinions. You do it to protect yourself. From what? From a complaint. So you want to make sure, for better or worse, you explain the facts as they are, because if you get an advisory opinion that says you can do something and the facts were hogwash, you might as well line the birdcage with it because it's not going to have any value to you. If you get advisory opinion that says you best not do this because it would violate the code, better to know that than to just try and get something that's gonna be something you want to see. Anybody who's subject to the code can get an advisory opinion. It's gotta be about something that will impact you. You can't, asking for a friend, or, my aunt's on the zoning board and wants to know if she can do this. Happy to help out, let your aunt ask us if she can do it, because it'll be binding on her. The time to do this is before you take official action, not after, right? First of all, the Ethics Commission doesn't even issue advisory opinions on something that's already happened. Prospective conduct only. And it's a lot easier to ask permission today than forgiveness tomorrow, right? So before you take official action. How to get an advisory opinion, you mail, hand deliver, or email to the Ethics Commission a letter containing your signature. And please, please, please include your phone number and email address with your name. The name, jurisdiction, and powers of your agency, commission, or office. Tell me about your official position and describe your duties. Tell me the nature of the potential conflict. Summarize the relevant facts as best you can. You can't be expected to know everything we need to get from you. That's why we're gonna call you and chat about it. Let us know if you have any time constraints. We always try to issue advisory opinions in the order that the requests come in, but sometimes somebody's in more of a hurry than somebody else, and we want to accommodate you as best we can. Plus, the Ethics Commission generally meets twice a month, once a month in the summertime, always on a Tuesday morning, always at 9. We had a meeting today, although it feels like it was last week at this time of day. Advisory opinions are heard first, they start promptly at 9. If you come down, you'll be out there before 10. We do encourage people to attend the Ethics Commission meeting at which your advisory opinion will be considered, just in case they have questions for you. It's painless, I promise. So after you submit your request, you're gonna get a letter saying, we got it. You're gonna get a draft recommendation prepared by a staff attorney. Reason it says draft across every page, big letters, they're usually 3 to 5 pages long. It's because what I write, or what Teddy writes, doesn't mean a thing unless and until a majority of the members of the Ethics Commission vote to approve it. And this is where I usually say you are strongly encouraged to attend, but I've already said that. Let's say that it's approved, you're gonna get a written copy. It's gonna go up on our website along with all the advisory opinions issued for the past 30 years. And your advisory opinion request letter is open to public inspection if someone were to call and ask to see it. Now, you might say, well, I might need an advisory opinion, but I'm very curious to see if the Ethics Commission has ever answered my question before. Going on the website, I'm gonna type a couple of search terms into the bar and see what pops up. And you find 5, 6, 11 advisory opinions, and you start reading them, and you get to one and you go, son of a gun, that's my question. I mean, that's my exact question. Maybe I don't need an advisory opinion. Maybe I just read this one really, really carefully and do exactly what they told this person to do, and I'll be fine. Please don't do that, right? The only person who can rely with absolute certainty on an advisory opinion is the person to whom it was issued. Now, read the one you found, get an idea of which way the wind is probably gonna be blowing for you when you go before the Ethics Commission. You might see me cite that advisory opinion, of course. But if you need something you can take to the bank, get you one, okay? All right, almost done. Financial disclosure, everybody's favorite, right? A number of people are required to file an annual financial disclosure statement with the Ethics Commission. If you are so required, you are well aware of it, because we know who needs to file. Michelle sent you those blue letters every March, and then we send reminders ad nauseum. And we're not gonna go too deeply into this, but I want you to know why we have financial disclosure. It is not to embarrass, annoy, or offend, I promise. Financial disclosure helps ensure people acting in the public interest do not use their public positions to further their private financial interests. These documents help identify any conflicts between an official's financial interests and their public office. They increase the overall transparency in government appointments and decision making. And they help further the public's confidence in government. And what's wrong with that? No one's gonna ask you what you think of your house. No one's gonna ask you how much money you have in the bank. Those are not the types of questions. They will ask you, do you serve as an officer or a member of the board of directors on any particular organization? If so, which one? They're trying to identify potential conflicts. Is your spouse employed? By whom is your spouse employed? Not how much does your spouse make, that sort of thing. Just trying to identify potential conflicts. The Code of Ethics requires that these statements are filed with the Ethics Commission by the last Friday in April or within 30 days after your appointment to a public position. If you're being appointed to a second public position, because you just can't do enough public service, you don't have to file twice, you just file once. Or within 30 days of someone filing a notice of organization, also known as a CF1 with the Board of Elections, or announcing themselves as a candidate, whichever comes first. Gary Petraka from my office, he asked me to remind everyone that all officials required to file financial disclosure must continue to do so until they've been out of office for 1 full calendar year. These things are like taxes, so in 2025, the 2024 financial disclosure statements were due. And that's how that works. Look at us, this is the very last slide, this is our contact information. And this is where I invite people to ask questions, and before I do that, I want to tell you that at this stage, I can feel people thinking one of these two things, sometimes both. The first is, question, I don't even know half of what you just rattled off for the past 45 minutes. I can't come up with a question, that's fine, because you might have a question at a later date, and give me a call. Other people I can feel saying, I do have a question, I prefer not to ask it in front of 45 other people, which is why I take my time when I get my vote on. So that having been said, does anybody have a question on all this stuff that I just tossed your way? Yes, sir.
You indicated that you'd winnowed down the recusal form to 1 page.
Yes.
I think that's great. Back to the financial statement, though, everybody's favorite. Is there some way you could winnow that down? You get it every year, you're synced almost with the new stuff. It's onerous at best.
Yes.
And I'm holding here a list that appeared in last week's Secana Times, which is a local newspaper. Town of Tiverton is looking for applicants for 17 boards and commissions. I'm not saying that that's the reason they're not applying, but it has a chilling effect. So
Your statement is well taken, and I'll tell you, not only does that have you mentioned a chilling effect, imagine the people that get appointed and they have no idea that this exists. I'm glad I don't answer those calls, the poor investigators are the ones that do it. As for streamlining it, it's a wonderful idea. I know one of the things that happened a few years ago was they made it possible to do it online instead of paper. And, well, I'm just making the plug for them with, I'm told, it retains the information. So after you do this once, it should be a lot easier to update because it retains your information. People that want to fill out a big form can. And I know that, the directions are as long as the thing. I think they're trying to make it as clear as possible. But with government, usually, the clearest of something can be as mud, and I'm not knocking these things, but I appreciate the time and effort people put into it, and I will take your comment back to the decision makers in my office.
Thank you.
And see what can be done. Maybe they can, combine.
Or maybe if there are no changes from 1 year to another, there could be a 1-page form, which is, signed on the roads or whatever. That's just an idea.
I think that's- I think that's the point with the, doing it online, because you just sign it, because you're not changing anything, it repopulates last year's information. But, it's a drag, I don't know what to say, but, I can tell you that it's a pet project of Jason Graham to enforce financial disclosure, and he had 100% compliance this year. Everybody that needs to file, well, one person would file a complaint. It settles. Yes.
Sadly, we live in a time where we have a president of the United States who doesn't agree with anything you've said tonight. We have 2 justices on the Supreme Court who don't abide by the rules that you've explained tonight. I agree with everything you said. I think it's easy for me to live by. But as a volunteer who's given my own time to serve in a small town and a municipal board, it makes me feel extremely cynical that I am held to a higher standard than the President of the United States and justices on our Supreme Court. And in your position, what do you think we can do to demand better from the people at the highest authority of our land?
Oh,
Mhm.
I wanna see you deal with that. I really do.
You know, I was a musical theater major, and did that in special actors, singing for 10 years before I went to law school. And boy, I wish I was in a bus and truck tour, living around the roof right now, and I answer that question.
Very good.
I'm not allowed, I'm not allowed to speak on such things, but what I can do is honor each and every one of you for your public service and your commitment to doing the right thing. And if that would just spread, you know, not to sound like that naive first grader in Catholic school where we're doing the right thing and I'm doing the right thing, but how do I answer that?
The danger for our republic is silence is complicity. Silence is complicity with corruption and violations of ethics
I
and
don't
highest
disagree. I don't.
positions of authority.
However, I work for the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. People in Massachusetts aren't subject to this code of ethics. I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to step outside of my box and my area of expertise to become political. I stay apolitical in this because it's my job. But I feel you, and I'm not trying to make light of it, I'm uncomfortable. But, you know, I'm a representative of the state of Rhode Island Ethics Commission and was not sent here to opine on anything other than these code of ethics. You wanna chat outside? We'll have a little chat, but. Yes,
I've served on a number of appointed and elected committees, and sometimes in the course of a meeting, a question may come up about whether a member, it may be raised by a member of the public or the person himself, or another member. Do you have a conflict of interest here? And in some cases I've seen where someone will turn to the town solicitor or a lawyer representing a board for an opinion, that if a lawyer in good faith offers some opinion, that doesn't represent
no,
doesn't represent any.
no, a solicitor can be very helpful. As I understand the question, you know, I'm at a meeting and somebody, it's not like someone from the ethics commission is seated right there. Plus, when you call me on the phone to ask me a question, what I say to you is informal advice and guidance only. That's not binding on the ethics commission. You have to get an advisory opinion for something to be binding. So, you know, what if a solicitor doesn't know the code and advises someone erroneously? I've seen that happen. I think it gets taken into consideration in the penalty phase if there isn't that. But, always better to go to the source where you can, and I've had people, you know, I'll get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that will say, I might have a conflict of interest in this particular matter, I'm not sure if I can vote. And they tell me about it, and I'll say, well, when's the vote? Oh, it's at 7 o'clock tonight. Oh, okay, what do you expect me to do between now and then? Well, what do? Well, if you want to recuse out of an abundance of caution, so you don't have to worry about it, you can do that. Well, no, I want to take part in this. Well, you ask, can this matter be continued while I get advice with you? They're gonna say yes, or they're gonna say no. Yes,
How long have you been on the commission?
I joined in September of 2018.
2000?
2018, I joined the Ethics Commission. I have been an attorney for 29 years. And my first job was as a criminal prosecutor for the Attorney General's office. And then I went and worked for a big fancy pants law firm. And then I had my own practice doing family law. And then I was hired by the Rhode Island Family Court to be a CASA attorney. So I represented children from birth to 21 or 18 at the time, whose parents were open to DCYF for abuse and neglect. And then,
Well, thank you for what you do.
thank you, my pleasure. Yeah. Any other questions? You bet, I can always tell an attentive audience, and that would be you, and I'm very grateful because you won't be home watching Jeopardy now. And so, as you can't everything, but you know, that you give your nights up to public service is extraordinary, and thank you for that. Thank you for your time.